The light's really bad and I can't see a thing here, but I've got this tray of this little drawer out of one of these multi-drawer cabinets, and it's full of diodes. So I'm going to have a root through this because there's some real museum pieces in here. Well, I've turfed a few of these larger diodes out on the basis that the larger they are, the older they probably are. So I've got quite a selection here from these tin cans. There's another tin can, to these Mullard glass ones with the black covering. Some GX34s from same sort of era, and then I think these are slightly more modern, and then there's just a few other odd ones, PY100 or something, and I think this EME I can't get my finger there. That's a microwave diode, I think, in the tin can. Oops, they're all rolling away. I'll try and find out what some of these things are and what they do. Possibly the oldest diodes I've got in my collection are the Mullard OA70, which was first introduced in 1955 when I was just a toddler. The Mullard ones are black. That one's had its paint taken off. The Mullard ones are black with Mullard OA70 written on them. And the others, these clear ones with the paint marks on, they're probably made by Philips. They're germanium point contact high frequency diodes intended as a detector in AM receivers and TV video detectors up to 100 megahertz. Now that surprised me that they would go up that far. It was only rated for 22.5 peak inverse volts and 50 milliamp average current, although it would stand 200 milliamps peak, which is actually amazing considering the tiny size of the junction there, this cat's whisker junction. The forward voltage drop was specified as 0.25 volts at 0.3 milliamps forward current. I measured it on my meter. This one is measuring 363 millivolts forward voltage at a current of 1 milliamp. The other one I've got reads slightly lower, at about 295 millivolts. The reverse leakage is very dependent on temperature. At this temperature it's about 70k, but if I touch the thing, you'll notice it very soon. It will start going down quite quickly. Look, this is romping down. So that was at room temperature. Is probably about 22 degrees in here at the moment. I'm raising it up to body temperature and it's going down quite quickly. As they were covered in black paint, I wondered if they were light sensitive. Remember the old OC71 and OCP71, but they don't appear to be light sensitive. It makes no difference whether they're in the light or the dark. They're more temperature sensitive than light sensitive. Something that I hadn't realised until recently, considering the fact I've been in electronics all these years, was that these coloured bands actually mean something. They always have a red cathode end, but there's two more colours, in this case purple and black, which is 70, so this is an OA70. And you know, I never knew that. I can't believe I've gone all this time and never knew that. The next slightly younger diode in my collection is the Mullard OA71, also proudly pronouncing its British manufacture. British made, look. Must be good. This was probably first appeared in about 1956 in general use. This one amazingly had 90 peak inverse volts, so it's quite a step up from the 22.5 volts of the OA70, and it would stand about 150 milliamps peak, but only 35 milliamps average, so it's slightly less average current than the other one. This was also used as a detector diode, but I think it was a much lower frequency one than the OA70. I think this was more used for AM type radios and things like that. Next we have the Mullard OA79. As you can see, I've got quite a few of these. And these have got the colour code: red for the cathode, purple for the 7, and white for the 9. So it's OA79. Now these were germanium point contact, intended for TV sound detectors, and in match pair as ratio detector diodes. They had a 45 volt peak inverse voltage and a 150 milliamp peak current like the other one, but only a 4 milliamp average current. And the forward voltage drop was specified as 2.8 volts at 30 milliamps, which is a strange way of specifying it. And the reverse current was supposed to be 90 microamps at minus 45 volts. I've got, I don't know if any of these are pairs, but they were probably clipped out of ratio detectors and things like that, so I dare say some of these are match pairs. Like the OA70, they've got about a 0.37 volt drop at 1 milliamp current. Reverse leakage current isn't as bad as the OA70, it's more like 100k, and it does go down with temperature. The glass ones, which are probably slightly younger, have a slightly lower forward voltage drop, but they're pretty much the same on the reverse leakage. Unfortunately, I only have one example of the ubiquitous OA81 with its bands of red, grey, brown. That's red for the cathode, grey 8, brown 1, OA81. This was a general purpose germanium point contact diode, and it had a reverse PIV of about 90 volts, average forward current of 50 milliamps, pretty much like all the others, and it would actually stand a peak current of 500 milliamps for a brief interval, which is quite large. Now this one's a bit difficult to see. It's a General Electric GEX34. It's made by the General Electric Company Limited of England, nothing to do with the General Electric Corporation of America. And this was introduced at least 1956, possibly earlier. And it was a TV detector diode intended for use in sound and high-level vision detectors, but also in 10.7 meg ratio detectors in broadcast radios. FM was just coming in around that time. It's got a typical capacitance of 0.9 picofarads at 45 megs, and it's 30 milliamps continuous, 100 milliamps peak, on single peak overload half an amp. This is a sort of rubber sheath on the outside, with the cathode marked with a red blob. But also notice the cathode has got a different shape to the anode. It's actually bigger and it's got like a pointy mark on it. Whether that's intentional or not, I don't know. But it's quite difficult. I've had real trouble getting the lighting to even show this up. But as you can just about see the writing there, GEX34. And the writing GEC, the typical font that the GEC used to use. I like that very fancy G. I've got two of those, but the other one is very dirty. And I don't want to clean it because I've tried scraping the grease off and it takes the lettering off with it, so I'm going to leave that one as it is at the moment. Next we have the Ferranti ZS10A, Zulu Sierra 10 Alpha, and it's got some other code numbers on there, F, H, Z. Whether that's a date code or not, I don't know. But it's got a red spot, which is probably the cathode. Now this one is by Ferranti, and this is a silicon rectifier, 60 PIV, 100 milliamp, 150 milliwatt. And it says 2 microseconds, so that's it's pretty slow, I think. It has definitely a mains type volt rectifier diode. Ferranti were a British company that mainly made stuff for the defence industry. So you can see the size of this thing by the size of my finger. It's quite small. Now, I forgot to say this one dates from 1958 or earlier, or did I say that already? We're getting towards the end of the journey now with the SX47 and the SX82. Now these were Xenodiodes made by the General Electric Company Limited of the UK. Possibly the late 50s or early 60s. And the 47, which is that one there, is 4.7 volts, and the 82 is 8.2 volts. And they've got date codes on. The SX47, oops, dropping stuff, has got the date code EWG. I haven't got a clue what that means. If it is date code at all, it might not be. And the SX82 has got the code YTH. They've never been used. But no, they're silicon. Finally, no, this isn't a gun cartridge. This is, I think, a microwave diode. And it's germanium. Just it's very, very faint, but on the top edge there, there's the engraving 7822, I think it is. Yes, 7822. I mean, it does look like a cartridge, doesn't it? It looks like an empty cartridge, except it hasn't got the thing in the bottom. Whatever they call the thing in the bottom. But it's got like a connection in there. It looks like it's meant to plug in. Looks like it should plug into something, I think. This looks like nickel plated or probably even silver plated. And the diode connection's a long way down the hole. That's the cathode, and the anode is the connection down in there. Being germanium, I would think that probably dates from the 1950s or early 60s. I don't think it's any younger than that. But I don't know what it is, to be quite honest. Why would they bury the connection right down in there? It's a mystery, this one. Here you can just about see the marking, 7822. 7822. And the incident of the forward voltage of this at 1 milliamp current is only 160 millivolts, which is a lot lower than a lot of those point contact diodes. And it's quite leaky in the reverse direction, being germanium, of course. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little rummage through my box of antique or semi-antique diodes. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, and as they say around here, ta-ra a bit, or bye.